Well, Ponzi schemer Bernie Madoff almost got away with it, and now we may know why, because the folks at the S.E.C. who were supposed to be watching for fraud were actually watching this.
Any questions?
Yeah, lots of them, like porn. Why were so many of them watching porn? According to a memo obtained by Fox, some senior staffers at the S.E.C. spent more time looking at pornography than fighting crime. One guy in excess of 8 hours a day, and he was a top attorney, reportedly visiting websites with names like Naughty.com, YouPorn, and Skankwire. All right. With us now, the guy who uncovered all of this, so to speak, the S.E.C. Inspector General, David Kotz. David, I mean, this builds on earlier fears that this was just something limited to lower-ranking officials, but it went up the food chain. Do we know how many were actually involved?
Yeah, well, we found instances, as we said in our summary, of 33. I know of 31, particularly since I joined the S.E.C. as the Inspector General in the past 2.5 years. So 31 instances in the last 2.5 years. And
all right,
yes,
so when you say last 2.5
officials.
I'm sorry, David, through the last 2.5 years?
Yeah, so since about December 2007, we've issued 31 reports, and some of them were senior officials.
Now that's what makes this somewhat different than prior reports, because people in a senior position, as we're looking at this, were the ones I would think were on top of this. But in fact, they were on top of something very different. Now, how prevalent was this?
Well, I mean, there were only those cases that we found, so I certainly wouldn't say that it was, throughout the commission. The concern we had was not so much with the number, which was only, 31, 33 individuals, but with the severity of those instances and the egregiousness of those instances.
Well, do we know whether the people involved were fired?
Action has been taken. In different cases, there were different things that happened. In some cases, people resigned after threat of termination. Some people were removed. Some people were suspended. Some people were reprimanded.
Were any of the ones, the higher-ups who were involved in this, in key positions to decide issues like how to proceed against a Bernie Madoff or how to proceed against brokerage firms that might be getting scrutinized?
Well, we did not find any cases where anyone who was involved in either the examinations or investigations of Madoff or Alan Stanford also viewed pornography. But some of them were senior officials, enforcement officials who were involved in cases that should have been brought, cases that should have been worked on, rather than having folks sit there and, as you said, spend several hours a day looking at pornography.
We did get a statement from the S.E.C., David, to this effect. Each of the offending employees has been disciplined or is in the process, you just said, by the way, of being disciplined. Some have already been suspended or dismissed. We will not tolerate the transgressions of the very few who bring discredit to their thousands of hardworking colleagues. So is it under your belief that this kind of stuff is now stopped?
Well, I mean, I can tell you certainly that Chairman Shapiro has taken a very strong policy against this, and she has come down very hard against the individuals that we have identified as having violated these rules. In the early days, there was some resistance among some senior-level people about how seriously to take this, but certainly Chairman Shapiro is taking it very seriously, and yes, she is certainly taking action against the individuals that we're catching.
Okay, well, I got you here now. We're just getting word that House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Ranking Member Darrell Issa sent you a letter requesting you initiate an independent investigation regarding the S.E.C.'s decision to move forward with action against Goldman Sachs. Have you received that? You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I have received a letter, and yeah, we do intend to conduct an investigation at the request of Congressman Issa.
And the issue here is the timing of the release of that news, right?
Right.
Is it a problem if people were given a heads up on the release of that information? The S.E.C. disavows that, says that was not the case. But is there anything wrong if that were the case?
Well, I mean, we have to look at all the facts and try to figure out what exactly happened. We need to understand what led to the decision to announce or bring the case on that day, to see if there was any undue influence involved. And so we'll look very carefully to